Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for an advance copy of this statement. And I'm really surprised you had so much to contribute to the G20, given there was barely a mention of international policy in her party's election manifesto, or indeed any policy, so much so that the government is apparently now asking other parties for their policy ideas. And so, if the Prime Minister would like it, I'm very happy to furnish her with a copy of our election manifesto, or better still, an early election in order that the people of this country can decide. Let's face it, Mr. Speaker, the government has run out of steam, and at a pivotal moment in our country and the world, amid uncertainty of Brexit, conflict in the Gulf states, nuclear sabre rattling over North Korea, refugees continuing to flee war and destruction, ongoing pandemics, cross-border terrorism, poverty, inequality and the impact of climate change are the core global challenges of our time. Just when we need strong government, we have weakness from this government. The US President attempts to pull the plug on the Paris climate change deal, and only, Mr. Speaker, a belated, informal mention and brief meeting with him. No ability to sign a joint letter from European leaders at the time he made the announcement. The UK's trade deficit, Mr. Speaker, is growing at a time when we're negotiating our exit from the European Union. The UK-backed Saudi war in Yemen continues to kill, displace and injure thousands, with 300,000 cases of cholera, and on this, a man-made catastrophe. But worse, Mr. Speaker, the government continues to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, one of the most repressive and brutal regimes that finances terrorism and is breaching humanitarian law. The court may have ruled that the government acted legally. It certainly is not acting ethically. Mr. Speaker, we on this side welcome the ceasefire agreed between the US and Russia in the southwest of Syria. It is good news. Did the Prime Minister play any role in those negotiations? Will she commit to work with them to expand the ceasefire to the rest of that poor, benighted country? The US President's attempt to pull out of the Paris climate change deal is both reckless and very dangerous. The commitments made in Paris are a vital move to stop the world reaching the point of no return on climate change. Other G20 leaders have been unequivocal with the US President, but not our Prime Minister, who did apparently not raise the issue in a bilateral meeting, but later raised it informally. I don't quite know what that means, but maybe the Prime Minister can tell us exactly what the nature of that meeting was. What a complete neglect of her duty both to our people and perhaps equally importantly, to our planet as well. We need a leader prepared to speak out and talk up values of international cooperation, of human rights, social justice and respect for international law. She now needs to listen. So I ask this: will she condemn attempts to undermine global cooperation on climate change? Will she take meaningful action against our country's role in global tax avoidance, which starves many developing countries of funding for sustainable growth, which is also sucking investment out of our public services? Will she offer European Union nationals in Britain the same rights as they have now? What proposals does she have, and what discussions did she have on Britain's membership of Euratom? Will she halt immoral arms sales to Saudi Arabia, as Germany has done, and back Germany's call to end the bombing in Yemen? We've heard the Prime Minister talk about safe spaces for terrorist finance. So why has her government sat on the report into foreign funding of extremism and radicalisation in the UK? When will this report be released? And what new regulations is the UK bringing forward for UK companies and banks as part of her new global accord on terrorist financing? Mr. Speaker, keeping Britain global is one of our country's most urgent tasks. But the truth is, this country needs a new approach to foreign policy and global cooperation that a Conservative government, in hoc to vested interests, simply cannot deliver. Responding to the grotesque levels of inequality within countries and between them is important to the security and sustainability of our world. In a joint report published in April, the World Bank, the IMF, the World Trade Organization, recognised what they referred to as the long-lasting displacement as well as large earning losses of workers, and that the negative experience of globalisation has informed the public's rejection of the established political order. The Prime Minister talks of the dumping on steel on global markets, but why did the government fail to take action that the other European nations did at the most acute time when our steel industry is suffering? Mr. Speaker, this government is the architect of the failed austerity policies and now threatens to use Brexit to turn Britain into a low-wage, deregulated tax haven on the shores of Europe. A narrow and hopeless vision of the potential of this country, which would only serve the few. One that would ruin industry, destroy innovation and hit people's living standards. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the US President said a US-UK trade deal will happen quickly. Can the Prime Minister give any detail or timetable or any of the terms of this agreement on environmental protections, workers' rights, consumer rights, product safety, any of those issues that so concern so many people? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister lost her mandate at home and now she's losing Britain and her influence abroad.